The entry into the Promised Land. Joshua chapter 1 verse 24. Zionism was born at the end of the 19th century, and the movement's discourse owed much to the language and ideas of that period, as did to the growing anti-Semitism in Europe. The murderous pogroms of the eastern part of the continent, as well as the establishment of ethnical nationalism and a biological discourse, had devastating effects on the ability and desire of Jews to assimilate into Western society. Some Jews came to believe that the solution to the Jewish problem could only be achieved through the creation of a Jewish national sovereign identity, Israel. Despite this basic unity of purpose, Zionism was not a monolithical ideology. Factions differed on substantial issues like the rate and implementation of immigration to Palestine, or even whether the Holy Land should be the site upon which to fulfill the movement's goals. Cultural Zionism, for example, understood the lands of Israel as the irreplaceable spiritual center of Jewish life and Hebrew culture, while Theodor Herzl and political Zionism focused on securing imperial approval for territorial grants to the Jewish people. Nevertheless, perhaps the most influential type of Zionism was Labor Zionism, and the coalescence of the principles of Zionist ethos of Herzl, or the pioneer, which emphasizes the cultivation of the land of Israel as the source for the Jewish redemption for the hardships of the dysphoria. The idea of creating a strong and vital new Jew, the antithesis of the stereotypical weak and degenerate Jew of the dysphoria, is a testament to the fact that Zionism was perhaps above all else a modern revolution for Jewish life, a modern revolution on Jewish life, an attempt to create a new Jewish subject in control of its own destiny. The pre-war era was key to the movement's development, witnessing early waves of Jewish immigration into Palestine, the foundation of the World Zionist Organization, and the first Congress in Brussels in 1897, and the establishment of Tel Aviv, the first Hebrew city, as well as the first secular Jewish settlements in neighborhoods in Palestine, or the Yusufs. Modern Hebrew culture was in its infancy at this time, and the groundwork was laid not only for the Zionist political organizations in Europe and Palestine, but also for the Hebrew public as well, newspapers, education, and so on. In the Yusuf, Zionism progressed only slowly towards its goal, and was far from fulfillment. After the death of Theodor Herzl, one of the fathers of Zionism in 1904, the movement lacked a charismatic leadership, and its advocates constituted only a small fraction not just of Palestine's overall population, but of global Jewish population as well. Palestine's existing Jewish community was weak, and almost entirely dependent on foreign and philanthropic donations for survival. Zionist national goals were obstructed by the fact that Palestine was not an independent territory, but part of the Ottoman Empire, a state of affairs that had existed for 400 years and that, even in 1914, seemed unlikely to change until the First World War. In some respects, Zionism difficulties were only exacerbated by the war. The Yusufs suffered from shortages of food and medical supplies, the donations had to stop, and Tel Aviv was evacuated by the Ottomans forcefully. Furthermore, the regime revoked pre-war exemptions for foreign citizens, mostly religious rights, so Jews who had immigrated to Palestine from Russia, France, or even Britain were enemies in the state, and had to choose between leaving the Yusuf or accepting Ottoman rule, paying taxes, and even joining the army. In 4 years of war, the Yusuf lost around 35% of its residents, dropping from 85,000 people to a mere 55,000 people. Jews fought in the war on both sides of the conflict, withdrawing from any unified nationalist Zionist agenda in favor of representing their various nations and homelands on the battlefield. In other ways, however, the war was a blessing in disguise for Zionism, largely because Zionism's primary patronage shifted into British and American hands. The British government increased an interest in Zionism, and Palestine allowed renewed British Zionist leader Chaim Weizmann to push for the Balfour Declaration in 1917, an official promise from the British government to act in favor of the creation of the Jewish national home in Palestine. In the wake of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the conquering of Palestine by the British Empire, and the establishment of the British mandate over Palestine, the Yusuf and Hebrew culture grew at an exceptional rate, especially after 1933, when the rise of Nazi Germany prompted massive immigration by German Jewish middle-class citizens. In 1939, there were close to 500,000 Jewish inhabitants in Palestine, an increase that violently intensified the Jewish community's conflict with the local Arab population. Nevertheless, Zionists were still a minority, representing 30% of Palestine's residents and about 3% of the world Jewish population. During the interwar years, many Jews and even Zionists proposed numerous solutions to the problem of Jewish life in dysphoria. Those proposals, drawn from various ideas such as socialism and human rights, hoped to achieve Jewish autonomy in Europe and not necessarily in Palestine. The desire for Jewish sovereignty would ultimately be achieved in 1948, mainly in response to the unforeseen horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. Alright guys, hope you enjoy that. Thanks for watching. I gotta go now, watch the kids, but I'll see you in a bit. Anyway, learn something, enjoyed. I think this is the best one so far. Later, learn something.